So, should you consider homeschooling? Well, if you're here and you're listening, clearly, I believe you should consider it. I mean, let's not fight with reality. You have some kind of an interest, you have some kind of a curiosity in and around the world of homeschooling. Now, in this episode, I want to talk about the 3 reasons why you should consider homeschooling. And also, let's be honest, the reasons why you should not. Now, I will tell you that whenever I hear people say, you must homeschool, it almost stirs up this feeling of fear. And I just don't like to work from that space. It creates negative thoughts, thus negative feelings. And I don't feel that when we come at anything with that kind of emotion fueling us, that we're considering it for all the right reasons. So let's just have an honest conversation, shall we? So I will tell you that I went to college intending to be a classroom teacher for my entire life. I mean, that was my dream. I pictured myself in room 25 for 25 years, teaching the same grade at the same school. I've envisioned my children being at my school, coming to school with me in the mornings and helping me sharpen pencils. Like, I had the vision. I had the whole plan just in my mind. And I did get to enjoy classroom teaching, which was fabulous for 13 years. I taught a multitude of grades during that time because I loved everything from kindergarten. In fact, even with my middle school experience, I love middle school kids. They're awesome. But there came a time when I decided to homeschool our own children. There came a time where I walked away from classroom teaching, and I did it for all the right reasons. I did not do it because I felt pressured to do it. I did not do it because somebody told me I'd be a better mom if I did it. I did it for these 3 reasons, and I'm going to share them with you. If you resonate with any of these, you should be thinking about leaning toward the side of considering homeschooling. So number 1, the thing I love about homeschooling, it's the personalized learning that you can offer to your children. So when Derek, our youngest, was in the classroom situation, kindergarten he loved, 1st grade he loved, but starting, 2nd grade was great too. Starting in 3rd grade, that was when we decided to pull him because he had such an interest in learning, and the teacher had 36 students. The class size went up substantially in the 3rd grade. And he suddenly started to lose an interest in learning. I had this child who loved to read about animals. He's just an animal fanatic. And yet he couldn't study them the way he really wanted to. He had to learn whatever the classroom teacher was teaching. I knew if I brought him home, I could personalize his learning by picking the things that interested him the most. And boy, oh boy, did we do that. We did so many awesome science lessons because that was something he really, really wanted. Now, the other thing about personalized learning that's so beautiful in the homeschool experience is that you can adjust the level of your child's learning abilities and capabilities. So what do I mean? You can speed things up if your child is whizzing through math and memorizing those multiplication facts so quickly that you're ready to move on to bigger and better things, multiplying 2-digit numbers. Even though in a classroom situation, your child may not be given that opportunity, at home, you can do that. And the opposite is true. You can slow things down. So I've been a classroom teacher. I was for multiple years. And I can tell you that when we would get together for our grade level meetings, we had deadlines we had to meet. We had to be at the end of a certain chapter by a certain date. And if we had students that were not meeting that mastery, we'd notify the parents and let them know, hey, this may be something you want to continue to work on at home, but we were moving on. No matter what, we had a whole group of children we had to consider. When you homeschool, you're considering your individual child. So that personalized, individualized learning, it's a great reason to choose to homeschool. All right. Reason number 2 that I think makes homeschooling an incredibly great choice, it was for our family, and that is the family connection that it builds. There is a bond, and I like to think of it as like, if you can think back to when you first started dating your husband, your wife, and you couldn't wait just to spend time, like we really got to know one another in those early stages. As we spend more time being married, a lot of times we spend less time together. Maybe we have separate hobbies or we do different things, and maybe we aren't spending as much time. This is true with our children. So I remember so we homeschooled our children through their middle school years, but we had plenty of friends who stayed in the middle school brick and mortar and did the traditional middle school pathway. And for many, it was a great experience, but there were many who told me, I feel so disconnected with my child all of a sudden. Like my kids want nothing to do with me. I don't even know them anymore. Like they're talking about weird things and I feel like I'm out of the loop, right? This is a really important time, those early teenage years, to be connected, not disconnected. And when you homeschool, that family bond is stronger. I also think that when you homeschool and you have that family connection, it allows you to instill the morals and the values that your family holds strong. I mean, these are morals and values that the schools, for the most part, can't teach and certainly shouldn't be teaching in some of the other cases. But at home, you absolutely can do that. You can start your mornings doing a Bible study, memorizing scripture or verses. Like, that's not something that they're going to get in a standardized school setting. But when you homeschool, even when you homeschool through a charter school, a public school, you certainly can make time for that. And I think that's a beautiful reason to choose to homeschool, to really instill those values. All right, the third reason that I would suggest, if you're considering homeschool and you want to know what's great about it, I loved the freedom. Wow, being a homeschooler gives you so much freedom. You gain hours in your day, hours in your week, rather than your child being gone from you for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. They are with you. So you can travel places. You can go do your learning at a park. You can go on more field trips. If you're learning about sea life, why not take a day trip to the beach? There's just so much more opportunity for freedom in how you're going to learn, where you're going to learn, the freedom to not be stuck in a seat at a desk for hours upon hours a day. Oh, the freedom was so beautiful. We went places and did things that there's just no way we could have done if my children had been stuck in a classroom and I, as a classroom teacher, stuck in a classroom too. There's also the freedom, this kind of ties into the one before, where you really do have the freedom to teach what you value. So as you teach in history, we talk about, like in February, it's Black History Month. I've always wondered why we would limit that to a month. Why? You can teach Black history every single month. You can teach from science perspectives. If you are somebody who wants to teach creation as a model, and evolution as another theory, but not spend all the time on it like a public school would require, you have this freedom to teach it from the creation side as well. And I loved having the freedom to do that. So those are 3 reasons why, if you're thinking about homeschooling, absolutely, those are the reasons I would promote it 100%. But it's time to have an honest conversation. Homeschooling is not an option for all people, nor should it be. I am all for school choice, There are so many families these days that have this hybrid where, you have one child that would really thrive in a homeschooled environment, but you have another child who really thrives in a bigger social space, like a brick and mortar traditional classroom setting. There is nothing wrong with this hybrid model. I actually love it. There are some people who have found schools where you're home 2 or 3 days a week, but you're on a campus 2 to 3 days a week. Fabulous. What we need to be doing is thinking about the children, the individual kiddos. What would be best for each one of them? There is no longer a one-size-fits-all educational model. It doesn't exist. I don't think it's existed for a very long, long time. We're just a little bit behind the times of how this can look. So having said that, homeschool should not be an option for every single person. I do not believe it is the right fit for everyone. And I'm going to tell you 3 reasons why you should not homeschool. You ready? Let's go. Hey, if your heart isn't really into it, don't do it. Please don't do it. Some people move into the homeschool realm because they feel pressured to homeschool. And it could be from the most loving, kindest people who are like, your children are so unsafe, and they're not just unsafe physically, they're unsafe spiritually, they're unsafe mentally, they're unsafe. You've got to pull them, you've got to pull them. But in your heart, you're like, I don't really love this idea. I don't really want to do this. You've got to be honest with yourself. If your heart isn't really into it, it is a hard job, my friend. And if you're not there willing to do what it takes, you're not going to enjoy it, and your children are not going to enjoy it either. Along those same lines, if you feel like, well, I'm a bad mom if I don't, wrong reason. That is not somebody whose heart is into it. That again kind of ties into I feel pressured to. I feel like people in my church are telling me to, people in my family are telling to, my best friends are telling me to. But you've got to have this honest moment with yourself. If your heart isn't really into it, please don't consider homeschooling right now. It's not to say that things can't change for you at some point. Just spend this time understanding the community of homeschoolers. Spend this time understanding what would a day in the life of homeschooling look like. Follow some people that are doing it. Just learn, but don't feel like you need to jump in. Not if your heart's not into it. The second reason I would not want you to homeschool, please, if all you're thinking at this point is, well, I just want my kids to be home, but I don't really want to teach. Like, I just don't really like teaching. But I know there's so many things that I can do. I'm just going to keep them home because that feels safer. I don't have to worry about physical dangers, mental dangers, spiritual warfare. Like, I'm just going to keep them home. It feels safer. But I don't really want to teach. I think I'm just going to find some online programs. I'm just going to put them in front of the computer all day, and that's how I'm going to teach them. Please don't homeschool. That is not an environment that I would desire as a child, or that I would desire for any children. And here's the thing. I teach writing online to homeschool children. So you may find this surprising that I'm saying, like, hey, don't just put your child in front of a computer for all their educational needs, but it's truly what I believe. Yes, outsource for certain things. Like if you don't love teaching writing, I get that. I can do that for you. I can help online. I can come into your home and help your children with that. But that's a team effort. That's not just me taking everything off of your plate. That's me coming along and saying, here, let me do this instructional piece here. Hey, I have an online class here. I can help with that. But you're still going to need to engage. You're going to need to read what they write. Give them feedback on what they write. Help them with their editing. If you're homeschooling, it's to be teaching. If you don't want to do teaching, please do not consider homeschool as an option. It's not the best fit for your family. It's not the best thing for your child. The third reason, and again, I'm just being honest, if you're not willing to sacrifice your time, this is a tough one because I know we all enjoy time to ourselves, and I'm all for having some time to ourselves. We need that. We do. We need that. But here's what you have to know. It's going to be a minimal amount of time to yourself for the number of years that you choose to homeschool. But keep in mind, your kids, they're only young once. You're not going to do this for years and years and years. For one of my children, let's see, we homeschooled just for 3 years. For the other, we did it for 6 years. Those years have come and gone. And yes, during that time, I had very little time for myself. I spent any of my free time was learning. I was learning how to be a better homeschool mom. And this is me with a teaching credential, right? I knew how to teach. That wasn't the issue, but there were so many other things I wanted to learn to be most efficient, to find what interested my children, to learn about the latest, greatest curriculum options, because we had so much freedom and so many opportunities. What were the field trips that were worth our time, energy, and effort? Meeting up with other moms in homeschool communities, park days, getting the kids out. Like, there was just a lot to learn. And you have to realize it's not going to go smoothly. So if you're somebody who just likes things to go so smoothly and no bumps in the road, yeah, it's not going to happen. You have to realize that things are going to be rocky from time to time. That's part of why you have to be willing to sacrifice some of your time to smooth out some of those roads. You're going to have to probably give up some things. Like, if you have won the award for cleanest house for all these years because your kids have gone to the local traditional classroom brick and mortar building, and you drop them off and you get all your grocery shopping done, and you organize your pantries, and you get your wash done, and you iron anything, and you tidy up the house, and then you go pick them up, when school's over. Yeah, those days are gone. When you homeschool, oh my goodness. Yeah, you're not going to have the cleanest house. You're not going to have the tidiest cupboards and pantries for a while. So you just have to know you're going to have to give some of those things up in exchange for what I would say is priceless, true family time. And lastly, all that free time. Again, if you are the mom who is used to being able to drop your kids off, go hit the gym, meet a few friends for coffee in the morning, do a little walk lunch with somebody you haven't seen for a while, get on the phone in the afternoon to talk to somebody, work. Did you work during the time that your kids were actually in a brick and mortar? Yeah, gone. It's not to say that these things can't still be done. I am not saying we throw the baby out with the bathwater. I was still able to meet and see friends. I was still able to talk. I was actually still able to work part-time. I didn't work full-time. I knew that that wasn't something I was capable of doing, but I've seen women do it. But you have to be honest with this. This is a huge decision that you're making, and it impacts you, and it impacts each of your children. So it's not something that should be taken lightly. I highly want to encourage you to please consider it, because it is a wonderful, wonderful experience for those who are built to do it. Just remember, not everybody is built to do it, and that's okay too. If it's not for you, please don't carry any judgment about that. Just be able to say, look, I did consider it, and right now is not a good time. And the opposite of this is true too. If you're like, oh, I'm in. If you're like, Melissa, this is exactly what I needed to hear. You just confirmed one more step in the direction of homeschooling. Fabulous. I'm so excited that we've met. I'm so excited that I can encourage you. I absolutely look forward to working with you in the future. But keep in mind too, you do not have to commit to doing this now for the next 5 years, 10 years. You don't have to do that. Let's just take one school year at a time. One school year at a time. If that feels overwhelming, how about one semester at a time? Don't get too far ahead of yourself. as you have heard me say, homeschooling is a work of heart. It takes a lot of heart to do it. And don't go it alone. Know that you've got community. You've got people here to encourage you. So with that, I do hope you consider it. And if you need any support or encouragement, you know where to find me. Right on.